EU5 1.2 is officially announced to be released on the 6th of May. Obviously the free patch 1.2 with a lot of features for the Balkans, Orthodox religion, and plenty of quality of life improvements to cover in this video, 2000 bug fixes, as well as the Fate of the Phoenix small DLC that is actually for free for anyone that purchased the premium version before the game release. There it goes, that's the release trailer. It's much faster than I thought, because it's just in 2 weeks from now we'll be able to enjoy it. I don't have the beta access even yet, but I can tell that today's dev diary that I'm gonna cover is got the massive amount of the quality of life improvements that you have to go through. As I recently announced, we started our own maps print store with over 120 maps to choose from: historical, gaming, modern maps. We print it all in the room, which I'm gonna show you right in the background. It's not purchased from China, one of you guys suggested. It's all printed by a big Canon printer that you see on the pictures. We then also can frame it for you or just send it as a print on a beautiful cotton canvas paper. We actually, guys, purchased enough of the maps for me to run out of the initial papers, so I had to purchase more. Thank you so much for all the support. Make sure to use the code ULM to get 10% off, and let's get straight to the video. Now let's go to the part of the free update coming very soon to the game, where Johan is focusing over here on politics and diplomatics, rebalance, polishment of the features, and even new features being introduced. And this is, I think, the biggest dev diary that I've seen. I'm gonna cover it briefly. You can, in the meantime, in my background, see the Constantinople map on the left hand side. On the right hand side there is my United States campaign from EU5 that you can check out. But yeah, proximity and topography. Your capital and what terrain it is on will now impact passively the proximity penalty through the same topography. So if your capital is in the mountains, or like in this case in the hills, like for Tbilisi, you're gonna get minus 20% proximity impact on any hills. And it looks like it applies to everything like hills, plateaus, flatlands, and wetlands. So actually your capital placement might be even more strategic right now, right? It's not only about, we know, where the rivers are, where the other locations, but also what the terrain type it is on. You guys been also asking to give more nations the proximity speed bonuses depending on the terrain, like, you know, Austria received it, or Ethiopia and Georgia. They also are adding it right now for Scotland, Savoy, Albania, Swiss and Nepal for the mountain and hill proximity. Ingas are getting a vertical economy advance that is, you know, helping with their astonishing logistical feat of carrying the full length of Andes across the coastal valleys. Persia gets the Persian Plateau, Morocco gets advances for the Atlas Mountain experience, plus at the same time the nations that I already mentioned, so Ethiopia, Austria, Tibet, Armenia, got their bonuses rebalanced for the consistency with what's coming. Your cabinet members will now have their cabinet traits, giving you additional bonuses. These traits will be unlocked over time as they serve your country, and what kind of traits they received, it seems to be shaped by the institutions and culture around them. There's also UI improvement on the cabinet screen where you can make it more condensed so it doesn't take that much space. There's also a big amount of the polish for the overall cabinet actions. Assimilate and convert actions now also reduce the migration attraction in the targeted area, reflecting the real disruption that forced cultural and religious change caused to local population movement. A PC state action has been made smarter, and it will now automatically stop once the state satisfaction reaches 50%, preventing you from accidentally overspending this. Boost colonial charter can no longer be applied to the same province twice. Oh, come on, that was cool. And promote culture is similarly limited to a single use per location. Why? That was actually pretty cool. Ensuring this action represents meaningful commitment decisions rather than reputable buffs. Yeah, that actually makes sense from the roleplay point of view. Like, you cannot send 5 cabinet members to all do the same thing. There are a few other adjustments that I'll not go through. There's no need to go that deep. A few bug fixes to the cabinet actions and improvements to the interface. So you can see, for example, that the increased control panel now display location wealth rather than the tax base, which in the figure actually relevant to that action's decision making, right? Because you're trying to reach the full wealth of that location. You'll see available peasants were doing the pop promotion, encourage migration, and expel people actions, a few other improvements. You'll have also a new action called estate reduction. Maybe I improve the lighting since the sun is down, where you see if, you can reduce the estate's loyalty, satisfaction a lot, take money from them to yourself based on the wealth, I assume, and destroy the building. So if you're ready to find this estate, that might be a quite good action to take. Now, how much you take will depend how strong your crown power is, so the stronger the more impactful this action is. There's some improvements to how the revolts are also working, which according to Hans is one of the biggest focuses they had in this cycle. First of all, very important, the civil war subjects now automatically call their overlords into the conflict, so you don't have to wait to save them from the civil war. Extending that further, overlords can now also intervene in any of their subjects' wars, not just the civil wars, giving great powers a real lever to pull when their sphere of influence is destabilized. On the other hand, if you have these loyal subjects, they're gonna join the civil wars on the other side of the conflict. That's weird, because in the civil war, when you occupy location and take it over, would you do it to the subjects as well, or you just occupy them normally? They are scaling how much the estates are spending on the rebellion depending how many pops they are there. The revolts will not destroy noble buildings like local governor, which I did experience in my latest Commonwealth video. On the other side, it was mentioned one of the other dev diaries, roads might be destroyed during the war, so it's important to not make it too demolishing. Now, when you're suppressing rebels with your armies, you can actually prioritize specific rebellions. When there's a lot of going on in your country, this will be dealt with first. Interestingly also, if there are a few revolts brewing in the same area, they'll actually join a single bigger uprising instead of doing it independently, making some of the rebellions probably a bit more challenging than they are right now. There's also change to the diplomatic capacity and its slider. I'm not entirely sure how they're changing it, because it seems like under the new system, alliances and legals will always carry capacity cost, but they did already before. But does it mean I have to actually spend by slider by having the alliances? Or was it the cost of alliances dependent on the slider before and it's not anymore? I think that sounds like it. And they're making big alliance blocks and league more legible for the balance perspective now with this recalculation. Well, they're adding what's called AI disposition, which is a feature information in the game. Kind of like a, how the nations looked at you in EU4, it could be a rival, it could be friendly, etc. They're adding this over here in EU5 as well. It was paid in EU4, where they can look at you indifferent, vary, as rival, covets, playing a war, or alarmed. They're using tough English words. I don't know what even covets means. Couldn't be like an easy word for that? These are not static labels, but they are recalculated monthly based on the real inputs driving the AI's attitudes. How your military power compares to theirs, whether they hold claims or casus belli against you, and whether there is active antagonism or a formal rivalry between your nations. And I guess it's gonna be seen here. It's a bit hidden if you don't know where it is. And there will be also AI disposition map mode that is dedicated for it. So you'll be able to see it, another map mode. Well, that might be helpful to understand who plans to war you or who would be likely to be your ally. Interestingly, if you have 25 spy network nation, you're gonna reveal exact plans of that AI that currently has towards you, like do they plan to expand or subjugate you. The AI content is much improved. Before it was like that Castile behaving a bit here and a bit here, and you see with that adjustments, the starting Castile desires forming Spain, but without really killing Portugal, so we might actually see Portugal surviving in game more consistently. They also added AI personality system. I think it's kind of something that EU4 had, but it was like ruler's personality, and it is already in EU5, the ruler's personalities. On top of that, there's also AI personality to the country that they are adding. There are 7 personalities: aggressive, expansionist, defensive, cautious, opportunistic, isolationist, and friendly, and each one adjusts a broad set of behavioral modifiers organized into 3 layers. How willing is AI to initiate wars, how much hardship it will endure to pursue its goals, and what it prioritizes when making decisions. So that might be a good step into seeing bigger empires being formed more often, like Ottoman Empire recreating its borders, or Russia being formed more often. Like you see, the aggressive country has medium war chance threshold will be introduced, stability heat tolerance, war exhaustion tolerance, collision strength tolerance, modes between wars are changed, aggressiveness and carefulness readjusted. And you'll be having a dedicated map mode for that. You should be having 3 settings for AI personalities, where it is random for the whole game for each country, it is random per age or per ruler to make it more dynamic. I think we are lacking a historical option where it's like just preset 1337 setup, where we're making sure that countries like Ottomans or some others are very aggressive. Oh, there will be actually also events in game and effects that will be changing that personality mid-game. That might be something that also can help shaping the historical expansions. But yeah, I will believe the effect when I see it. Again, rebalancing the war and peace, mainly stacking modifiers for the war score cost in a peace deal. I believe there are actually really strong ways of stacking it. So instead of, like, you know, additive modifier, they are doing again as an efficiency mechanic, just like they changed it for the proximity. And they are adding another feature that was paid in EU4, unconditional surrender. There's rebalance the enforced peace action. If you have a war where there are multiple revolters fighting you, there will be a button annex all revolters instead of just the primary one. And you have the dissolve Hanseatic League Peace Treaty to just stop them joining your coalitions, for example. They doubled war score from occupations, so it is more meaningful to actually occupy the locations where the threshold of 99% is reached when you occupy half of the country. I think it might be a bit too far, making it too easy, especially against smaller countries, but that's just my opinion. But that actually makes sense, especially with how irrelevant the battles are becoming with the later into game ages. There's a few more changes. If you want to go deeper, you can check them, but yeah, I will not go that deep. They are introducing the new Papal authority system for the Catholics, which is a resource that you can gather between 0 and 100, and it is for the whole institution of a church as an international organization, not individual for each country. You know, it's supposed to represent the health and prestige of the organization, institution. You start at 60, and then you can drift it up and down depending on the web of different sources in the Christendom. So now what can impact is like Pope controlling Rome, peace between the Catholics, impossible, strong cardinal network can increase it, while it can be decreased by excommunicating rulers on the thrones when there's no Pope, and some other modifiers. And that modifier is gonna impact every Catholic country. With 2 thresholds, low below 25 and high below 70, above 75. When it's high, you're gonna get monthly devotion and legitimacy bonuses, as well as heretic tolerance, while when it's low, you're gonna be punished with negative devotion legitimacy, creating a pressure to fix that. You can also have a decision, you can ignore the papal bulls, and this will quietly drag down that for each country enacting it. So even though, you know, Catholic was already one of the most expanded regions in game, they're adding more things to play around with there. They're reworking the trust system, which is good news. It was so confusing so far in EU5. Let's see how it's gonna be now. Apparently they want to make it closer to EU4, where trust will be now a continuous value that directly influences acceptance across all diplomatic interactions. So, you know, when it's above 50, it's gonna be positive modifier. When it's below 50, it's gonna be a negative modifier, just like it was in EU4. But instead of sitting on whatever level that you're gonna go for, it is gonna have an equilibrium of 50. It's gonna slowly go towards, unless you'll be taking negative and positive actions. So this should feel more like a reputation score from that country towards you, very like it was in EU4, which probably we all accepted and liked. And again, this was a paid feature. They also introducing territory connectivity to subjects. So if, you know, a subject is within your country, it's sharing good borders with you, they're gonna get a big bonus, big chunk of the loyalty bonus. If they're connected just slightly or might by the sea, they're gonna have slower bonus. and if you're just completely disconnected, you're gonna not receive any bonus to the loyalty from that. With the rework on the trust, now the overall trust is gonna impact the subject's loyalty, like you see over here, but it's not a big impact. Oh, they are changing the meta about spamming subjects to assimilate cultures for you. So since they are subjects and they have reduced administrative capacity, they are gonna receive maluses to assimilation and religion conversion. And overall, it must wait 10 years from creating a subject to actually enforcing a religion or culture on them, making it still a viable strategy, but not so overpowered and the only strategy that you can take. If you talk about the subjects and their meta, they also reworking how annexing subject works. Now, previously the whole cost was only based on the amount of locations, rural or urban. Right now there's first of all flat base cost, and then it is a second part of the cost that is based on the size, which is probably making smaller subjects annexation slower, but bigger subjects much faster, which was an issue before, creating actual, I would assume, strategies where you want to have bigger subjects, not just one province minus like it was before. And then, as you see, the loyalty of the subjects is also going to have an impact on the speed of annexation. Now we can also actually enforce subjects to change their capital, something you couldn't do in EU4, which might be, very useful strategy when you have great subjects with great resources but no proximity towards them. Then you can enforce them to actually move their capital closer to these resources to use them in your trade system. There are also some different UI improvements, like you'll be able to actually schedule like a longer queue of the researches, from my understanding how it's being explained here, even for the ones that you did not unlock yet. And on the rival diplomacy tab, you'll be actually able to hover to see the strength comparison between the countries, which gives you actually some information before you decide on arrival, just like you had in EU4 about the naval and the military strength. They also adding rivers to multiple important map modes like materials, development, food, and control, just like in here, so you have a better understanding where they flow in your decision making, and you don't have to constantly jump back and forth between the river map mode and the other map modes. Anyway, that's it for today. Make sure to check our maps store, strategymaps.co, where you can purchase one of the 120 maps that we have for you, including a 1337 map, as well as me being able to print your EU4 and EU5 campaign with some nice edits. Use code ULM to get 10% off. Bye!